I'll start with some rugby questions, if I may, rather than politics.
Hold on, I'll have to sit down for a minute. Is that right?
Good job you're sitting down. Don't worry, I will come to them. Toby, in all honesty, when the draw was made and your initial fixture list was laid out for Europe, I don't think many, and I'm big enough to say I was one of them, thought that you'd be here right now. But something about Europe this year has really brought the best out of your team.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it would be, the common thought process that everyone saw. But adversity can bring a lot of, and the underdog tag can bring a lot of enjoyment and expectation as we've gone along. People have paid us probably more attention, and we've earned some respect, if nothing else. And irrespective of what happens on Sunday, we've certainly done that, and I think that's important. You talked about some of the complications in, Welsh rugby. It's nice to have something to champion, which was great.
Wales was crying out really for a team to really fly the flag, particularly in the knockout stages, and you guys have sort of really taken that responsibility on. Yeah,
I mean, it's a long time. I think it was 12 years. I think it was since, we've been in that situation, which is good, and a credit to the players and the staff that got us there. We were very. We've been very open and honest about this part of the journey, if you like, because we spent, it's very hard to qualify for the competition in the URC and to finish where we did and be the top Welsh region, that means we're the flag bearers, right? So we said we would enjoy it irrespective. We knew that we'd have to earn our respect. As we said, we've done that. And if I'm honest, the nature of the season probably lends itself to being more of a cut sort of team anyway, because of the amount of breaks in the season, the amount of contributions we have to, take the injuries aside, but the amount of contributions to Wales, so you lose them for league campaigns before and after and during campaigns, especially if you are contributing so many to it. So, you've got to play your way in, and normally when Europe comes around, we've sort of played our way in again. So from that point of view, the stars aligned, and we're obviously delighted to be here and really looking forward to Sunday.
You were underdogs in the goal stage. You probably slight underdogs again this weekend?
Slight? That's very nice of you to say so. Look, we're playing against currently the best team in the Premiership by some distance. Well, if you had Sale, if you look, who are a derivative of Saracens as well, coached by ex-Saracens players and bits and pieces. It's a very difficult brand and type of rugby to deal with. I know there are differences before the Sale supporters jump up and down, but I've come from that world. I know how tough it is, and you're not going to be top of that pile without a considerable amount of resources, effort, quality of players, all of those things. So, to say that we're slight underdogs is generous, and especially the fact we're going there with the Stonex, which is a very tough place to go.
Well, I was just thinking that your previous results might have at least shortened the odds slightly. The fact that you did go to France and win, you went to Welford Road and won. Yeah. I presume those wins, I guess, are born from what sort of a combination of skill and bloody mindedness.
Yeah, belief and effort, and we've probably slipped under the radar at the very start, but certainly as we went through the competition, there was more attention put on us, thanks to you guys and what we've achieved. So, but that comes with wanting to be a championship team. So, it's part of the journey of moving from people knowing what you're all about, and the very, very best teams get used to carrying the favourites tag as well as the underdog. We've got a long way to go to do that. Welsh Rugby's got a long way to go to do that. But as I said, we're enjoying the journey, and we're looking forward to it, and we'll embrace it with both hands for sure.
Okay. You talk about enjoying it now. Is there a thought, unfortunately, that next year is going to be even tougher to get to this stage for any Welsh region? Yeah,
of course it is. But that's why we've got to enjoy this one. So let's, make hay while the sun is shining. The remnants of what happens after the stuff that's gone on in recent weeks, months, and whatever will be felt far and wide. But so let's make sure we focus on the present.
Squad wise, presumably, do you have some of your Welsh boys back? Obviously, if Justin's joining us later on, presuming that he'll be part of the squad. Do you have the other guys back as well?
Yeah, I thought about this answer because I knew I was going to get it. I actually thought I would try and be flippant and say, the ones we're expected to be fit are fit, and the ones that we know are not fit are not fit. So, that's it in a short terms. But the returning boys from Wales that return fit are available, which is great.
So who's that then? Justin, Reese?
Yeah, Justin, Reese, Al Gartom, Sam Parry,
Beard,
George North, Adam Beard. Yeah.
So. Okay, great stuff. And is there anyone newly? Are there any new injury concerns at all from last weekend?
No, only Jack Walsh, who obviously had his head removed from his shoulders. So he's still recovering a little bit from that through the protocols you have to go through. But I think by the time the game comes around, he should be okay.
Great stuff. Good. Listen, I have to ask you in terms of, are we? It might be a very short answer. Are we any closer to announcing any, or are you getting any feedback that you can tell us about in terms of definite yes and no's to contract offers?
Yeah, we've got quite a few yeses. We've got a couple of no's that have been done outside of that. Those things will come around. But yeah, no. On the whole, we're probably 90% positive, which is good. Nothing that you're going to share with us today? Probably not. No, that's for Harrison to discuss. I know what it is, but he's got a strategy apparently. I know that's really hard to believe, but he has. So you need to talk to him about that. I noticed that Gareth Anscombe had to take to social media this week to debunk a story. Is he? There's no. You're not going to give us any news on him now. No, I mean, like you said, what he reported was accurate. And unfortunately, what was suggested certainly wasn't. So, from that point of view, that's as far as I'll go on that. You can imagine there's so much money to go around, and you've got to look to use that accordingly. Obviously, we're trying to, as the player union are, and talk about how we can keep the best players in Wales, and that's a battle for sure. Okay. And on a just separate issue, you might have seen what's happened to Llanelli this week, given one of the reasons that they said was they were going to try and maintain looking again at their role as a semi-pro team, as into feeding the professional side, the regional side. You've spoken before about you're probably going to have to lean even more next year on the academies, on the developing side and the feeder clubs. Mm-hmm. Do you have some sympathy with what's happened with them, and is there any thoughts that it could happen in your area? Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because, the dynamic that you're talking about, there's a wage cap, which no one's going to be anywhere near. And you've also you've been given a maximum player number, which no one will be anywhere near. So some of those things, I understand why these guardrails are in there for the right reasons that we understand. But ultimately, we still got to perform well and try and be as competitive as we can. So you have to have partnerships. You have to have mechanisms to fast track and blood your players. And, we have that with Swansea in particular and Swansea Uni. And that's been working well for us. And a number of players that you've seen, come through, Hugh Sutton, Max Nagy, for example, are really, have really benefited from that pathway. And, young type 5 forwards getting live scrums on a Saturday and experience is really, really important to the development. It's something I really believe in. And yes, there is potentially a greater reliance, but I actually see that as an opportunity more than a limiting factor. We know what the limiting factor is, effectively money, and we've got what we've got, and we'll coach with what goes on the pitch. But obviously, from a long-term point of view, you want to make sure your pathways and mechanisms are good, and ultimately, players play this game to play. So we need to make sure that we can manufacture and give the right playing program to all of our players at whatever age, and that'll help everyone grow their squads, for the long term. Yeah, those pathways are going to be even more important than ever, aren't they? Yeah, absolutely right. Great.
Toby, thanks. That's I'm good.
Thank you.
Toby, what kind of shape do you feel the Ospreys are in going into this match, given that you've got to reintegrate quite a lot of players, really?
Well, I mean, obviously the Dragons game was a good indication. I thought the boys that integrated into that, did exceptionally well. We've got obviously another challenge with the boys who had more game time, and some of those still haven't recovered. One in particular, which means, they've come back with some residual that we probably can't shift. But on the whole, from what I've just seen, we just walked off the pitch. We've had 2 sessions. We're training here at the Vale, which is good because of the artificial pitch. Change of scene has helped us, and an indoor facility has helped us try and increase that integration as far as we can get. You won't know till Sunday, but the quality of player and the quality of the individuals that are coming back, I'm pretty confident we're in pretty good shape.
And with Saracens, what are their strengths in your eyes?
The shorter one is what are their weaknesses, because there's not many. No, we know that it's a very, very, very difficult challenge, and there's not many cracks in what they do. They're very efficient, and if they get their tails up, they can be very, very difficult. You saw that in that first 20 minutes versus Quins, for example, in the last game. That they. Yes, they conceded early, and they're very resilient. The overriding thing, interesting thing for them is, they're used to winning. They're used to winning. They're used to being in these fixtures. They're used to competing. They've got a lot of international players like we have. That makes them a really tough dude. So I think the biggest thing to get past, first and foremost, is the mindset, of what they've got. They're very competitive. They'll be in your face. They will. They'll be very aggressive, and you've got to deal with that pressure. And I think that's the number one thing you've got to deal with.
And you mentioned Gareth Anscombe. What would you expect? Do you hope that he'll be playing for the Ospreys next season?
Yeah, I'd love him to be, for sure. I absolutely would do. He's back in training at the moment, which is great. He's a quality player, and as you say, as the numbers go down, you've got to try and maintain your quality, and it comes down to what you can fit and what people are prepared to pay for. So that's a balancing act, because I'm sure you're aware everyone's looking around this sort of mid-30s number, which in my opinion is way too short. To play a competitive season, especially if you contribute a load. But if that's what we've got, that's what we've got. And there's only so much money to go around, and you've got historical contracts in that as well, which were agreed and signed a long time before this austerity stuff kicked in. So that's why it's so difficult. Can you be competitive at that? We'll have to find out. But you're going to need to be very fit and not pick up many injuries. That's for certain.
So I kind of said, do you hope that he'll be with you? You probably hope that Adi Sevilla will sign on for you.
Have you got news for me, Mark? That's very good. If you know about it, that's very good.
Do you expect him to be an Osprey next season?
I don't know. If I'm honest, I don't know.
Right.
I think that we've got to make sure that there's a number of signings that we've made already, and particularly in that long-term back, that sort of early 20 type bracket, and we've definitely prioritised a little bit there, and obviously the DNA of our club, and then the danger is, and the unfortunate thing is, injuries start to affect people, right, long term. So you've got to look at things like injury profiles, availabilities, money that they demand as the player and the calibre of player, and I will not, I'm not begrudging people to get the money they deserve, because it's a very short career, and in fact I encourage it. It is what it is, but we've got to try and make these pieces of the jigsaw fit.
And on the fitness front, how is Gareth? And with Jack Morgan, we haven't had an update on Jack after his ankle surgery.
Yeah.
Have you got any return date on Jack?
Jack, no.
Roughly?
It will be. It will obviously go into. It won't be this season. He'll probably be fit enough. I think I'm pretty certain he'll be fit enough to be World Cup for sure. I don't see edging into that. But I'm pretty certain that he's not going to feature for us again this year, unless something spectacular happens, but I don't think so. And yeah, Gareth Anscombe's started his second week of training, so that's good for us.
It's a bit early yet, Toby, is it, for him to be back on the pitch?
No, well, no, again, you take it on a case by case basis, don't you? So, it's as I always talk about, it's what the quality of what they produce, but also how they react to the experience. We've trained, this week on artificial surfaces which bring different constraints to your body, and we're making sure that we try and stay on one surface because we know we're playing on the same on Sunday, so which makes sense. So yeah, we'll see how he presents day on day, and we'll make our call accordingly.
Yeah, and last question really, with Dan Lydiard, Dan put out a tweet this week saying that, you probably saw it.
I did.
Yeah. And obviously people got to make figures add up and everything. How good a player has he been for you? And B, is his future set in stone? Is he leaving the Ospreys?
Well, again, you can never say never because things change. For him, irrespective of what being a quality player, what a top individual as well. So, look, he's an Ospreys man through and through, and obviously we want to keep Ospreys people in the building as much as we can. But again, it comes down to the same conversations. Can we afford to do that, and at what cost? And if he's not with us, and there'll be an official element around announcing whether he is and whether he isn't. As we would with everybody else. He's a guy that I hope gets rugby employment somewhere because he's a top man and a top player.
Brilliant. Hope it goes well for you this weekend.
Thank you.
Tommy, can I just ask you one about Saracens? You've touched on their quality and how good they are. Mark McCall has obviously been central to all of that. You've coached at the sharp end in the Premiership. Can you give an impression of how impressed you've been with his longevity and his consistent success there?
Yeah, look, I mean, he is, like, as you say, the cornerstone of he's Mr. Saracens, and, he's bound to have had different offers, to go different places and internationally, I have no doubt. So, he's been a very, very successful. And look, I know people will go about, wage caps and bits and pieces. You've still got to win. With whatever you've got, you've still got to win. And, he's the person that set the tone. Back in the early days, when Brendan Venter, etc. were there, he's been the common cornerstone of it all. He's brought his own people through. He's promoted from within. People that have been at his organisation, Paul Gustard, Alex Arneson, etc., have moved on to different things and they're being successful. So I think the Saracens entity is a very impressive one, and he's the person that sits at the centre of it.
And just finally for me, given what happened to them a couple of years ago, they bounced back hugely impressively from that.
Yeah, of course, they've got the bit between their teeth, haven't they? If they're going to show it's not just about that, and the champion mindset that they have, and you just got to listen to their players that are on podcasts and bits and pieces and how they conduct themselves. They're a very competitive team. Even in that championship, a lot of the big players stayed around. That tells you a lot. And the ones that went on loan all came back. That tells you something as well. So they obviously enjoy themselves. They believe in what they're doing. They're very committed to the Saracens' way of doing things and what Saracens stands for. That's the sign of a really good culture, which is led by the man at the top.
Right. Thanks, Toby.
Hi, Toby. How are you? You all right?
I'm good, Hugh. Thanks. Yeah, not too bad.
Good man. A couple of questions for Saturday, as I mentioned to the lads, if that's all right with them. You mentioned earlier on this call making hay while the sun shines, and how you feel about how next season's going to look, and obviously the one after that. Do you get a chance to kind of make that case to the people running Welsh rugby? Do you say to them, look, you're reducing our chances of winning stuff? Do you ever get the chance to have that say, or do you leave that
directly? No. We have obviously people in those conversations, RMB and PRB and places like that. Everybody knows. It's just common sense. You know, the challenge for us is, you know, finding enough performance side. So I understand the financial side, and you know, you can't spend what you haven't got on bits and pieces. But Welsh rugby, people follow, not just Welsh rugby, in any form of sport which is emotional, people follow success. So the danger is going down if you like, a development part of it, and you know, putting your foot on the brake for a little bit, performance-wise, means there's less for people to get behind. You know, and Welsh rugby is competing with Welsh football, and Welsh football looks like it's doing pretty well to me. There's a bit of momentum in that. So there's a few danger signs around that. This is just my own opinion. So I think that we've got to try and champion and support the performance side in addition to that. And, you know, our part in this competition is probably something, you know, that people can get behind and distorts, well, hopefully gives some positivity around the fact that people can compete with the right coaching, the right program, the right people. But that's going to change. That's going to change because, you know, unfortunately, you know, money talks, and there's a certain level that you have to stay around to be, you know, a Champions Cup knockout team. So from that point of view, you know, that's the worrying side, and you know, I encourage people to consider performance as much as they do the bottom line.
An interesting point, when you're dealing with high performance day in, day out, you know, someone like me, I'm just looking in from the outside, but you've got guys like Alan Wynne in the room, Justin, you know, these top high performing athletes. Is it tough to kind of look them in the eye every day and say, well, actually, we're doing it with one hand tied behind our back, or do you just adjust to that and get on with it?
I'm just pretty. I mean, everyone have their own way of doing things, right? And you know, you've known me for a long time. I'm not a great politician, to be fair. You know, people, you know, you see what you get, and I back, you know, wear my heart on my sleeve and back my players and the organisation that we work for, and we will always work hard and do what we need to do and get out and find a way the best we can. However, in that sort of stuff, we're actually just very honest about it. We just actually talk openly about it and have big boy conversations around where we are, and involve them, and Justin in particular as the captain. You know, it's important that he understands what's going on. He's desperately passionate about the Ospreys. He's an Ospreys man through and through, and he cares about where it's going. So from our point of view, it's important that we stay connected and communicate well to see what the picture is. And I'll be brutally honest, I involve him in some of the conversations and some of the decisions, because he'll be part of the furniture and fixings long after I've gone, and it's important that he can help shape that.
Well, as you said earlier, there's some good youngsters. You know, I watched the Dragons game the other day.
Yeah.
You know, the performance you put out there with a slightly different squad.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
there is something to get behind there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And look, the positive side of that, and you know, if you look at my early days at London Irish, when you know your Della Nanges, Topsy Ojos, Nick Kennedys of the world, for example, you know, I've always brought through the same at Bath, you know, and getting people that are either there that were you know, through and into the first team and bits and pieces, something that I've always enjoyed doing. And yes, we have a necessity to do it, but that's enjoyable too. And seeing people like Jack Morgan, Dowie Lake, Morgan Morris, Will Griff, you know, push forward and onwards and upwards is exciting too. And I'm sure the fans enjoy that.